Hello and welcome to Americana X Newswatch. I'm Greg D, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Today on the Newswatch, behind the vapid Democrat response to RGB's death. Liberals' love of trite hashtags. You know the hashtags. Hashtag move on, hashtag me too, hashtag BLM. And finally, Emmys so woke. How woke are the Emmys? Well, they're getting pretty dang woke now. How is it that liberals keep getting every issue exactly wrong? We're going to be talking about that today on the show. For those of you that are new to the Newswatch, this is a news commentary show that brings a common sense perspective to our weekly news cycle. The show's for conservatives that care about what's going on behind the sensationalized headlines. If you've been here before, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Also, share this show out to those in your network so we can spread Christian conservative values to help build a greater America. First story today, behind the vapid Democrat response to RGB's death. Vapid, offering nothing that is stimulating or challenging. On the whole, our media response, mainstream media, even alt media, nothing has been thoughtful or measured in the media response to RGB's death. Just continued knee-jerk, childlike rhetoric to get people that are already liberal excited. It really is kind of sad to watch because death is a serious thing. No one likes to see someone pass away. But everything that the media is pushing now has immediately become political. We all need to wait until a different president is elected before we can add another judge to the Supreme Court. This is the claim by all of our media, at least the ones that are bought in on the liberal line. And why do they want to do this? Because feelings. Because Republicans are meanies. And of course, if the Democrats don't get their way, there will be hell to pay. There's a lot of examples that we could point to in the news cycle this week of what's going on in terms of like how shallow and thoughtless and just ridiculous all the liberal response has been to RGB's passing. But I wanted to focus in on just one main story here. For those of you that have not seen this, there was a joint presser that Schumer and AOC held just the other day, where they focused on one big issue. You know, the big issue they were focusing on was how RGB's last dying wish was this quote that Schumer revealed to us on this board here. It says on the board, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed. Ruth Bader Ginsberg." I mean, did she actually say that? We don't know. I mean, there's a nice poster here. It's got a nice black and white photo of her, and it looks convincing, you know. The graphic design is nice. They even highlighted fervent wish. You know, like, because they use the word fervent, we're supposed to believe it's more legit. Like, it definitely came from her if they use the word fervent. Why would any liberal just write that themselves? You know, why would they come out? That had to come from her. That's legit. This is one of the most cringiest things they could possibly do. I mean, liberals are already known for doing super cringe things every time they get on camera. But this is really ridiculous. I mean, he couldn't just say, somebody was in the room with her and they said that she didn't want any more Supreme Court justices to be added until there was like a different president elected. So, I mean, it just sounds like something a child would say. And then putting it on a poster board, it does not make it more of an effective issue. He could have just said it and then moved on. At any rate, having AOC there, I guess it's good optics, right? She is the most popular Democrat. And why is she the most popular Democrat? Because Democrats' ideas are all shallow and banal. And you might as well have someone that's a little more attractive and a little more young and fits the demographic of what they're going for than the old stodgy people. Might as well phase them out, you know? The sad thing is, AOC, the things that she said are basically in line with any of the kind of platitudes, empty sayings, shallow junk we'd get from any of the major politicians in the Liberal Party that have been in there for 100 years. Her arguments are just as compelling as theirs because all of them are speaking in generalities and platitudes. This is because the Democrats' politics are very shallow. Even a teenager can give a presser delivering Democrat platitudes. And oftentimes, teenagers have a better effect, a more impactful effect than somebody like a Schumer or a Pelosi. Just look at how popular David Hogg got from that shooting that he was witness to. And as a result, his 14-year-old sister. Did you guys know that David Hogg had a sister? Do you guys even remember David Hogg? Does anybody even care? No, none of us care about David Hogg anymore. But he was a useful tool at the time, you know, because he could spout the liberal platitudes, and he was sort of in the protected class because he was a teenager saying all that stuff. So you can't, don't you be critical of him. But now he's an adult, so I can say this. But, you know, I don't know if you guys knew this. He wrote a book. In fact, the book that he wrote, #NeverAgain, there's a line in here that I'm just going to read. It kind of encapsulates the whole concept of what he was going for. But this book, he wrote it with his sister, you know. And honestly, I couldn't read the book. It was just unreadable. But I read just, you know, the basic description of the book. Excerpt from the book. Looks like it was written by a child at that level of mentality, right? Almost like the manuscript was originally written in a crayon. But you know what? I think even though it looks like it was written by a child, this part I'm going to read from his book, it's just one sentence here. It really encapsulates the modus operandi of the Liberal Party on the whole right now. Like, this really gets to the heart of their action plan. This is literally all liberals right here in his book in one line. And this is the quote, open quote. When you open your eyes, but the nightmare doesn't go away, you've got no choice but to do something. Our first job now is to remember, okay, job one, remember. Our second job is to act, okay? So there's only 2 steps, right? Actually, he added a third step here, okay? So he goes on to say, remember, act, repeat. It's a 3-step process. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he totally captured in 2020 how all liberals think and act. 3 steps. Remember. And what does he want us to remember? Remember your rage. Remember how angry you were about whatever the last thing was that liberals are supposed to get excited about. Get angry. Be filled with rage. Step 1. What's the next step? Do something. Take action. What's the action? Doesn't matter. Just go out in the streets and whatever it is you do, do it. I guess you could expand on this a little bit and you could say, first, get angry. Speak with a lot of attitude and forcefully deliver those thoughtless, shallow platitudes with a scowl and with your fist in the air. This is the way of the Democrat. This is how you get what you want. I'm just gonna, I kind of took a diversion there for a moment. I want to go back to the Schumer thing just for a second. Really, the funny thing about that little presser that Schumer and AOC did together, yes, they are pushing the RGB as just a political tool for them to get what they want. But this does really fall in line with what we were just looking at from the excerpt from hashtag Never Again book. Because in that presser, they just basically boil it all down to, if we don't get what we want, we're going to take extreme action. We're going to do a whole bunch of things. Nothing's off the table. We're going to do a bunch of things that are totally awful and you're going to hate it. So you better give us what we want or there's going to be hell to pay. And this is the modus operandi. And, because it's delivered by AOC, I guess, she's the fresh-faced politician that has the right color of skin and the right look to her face to kind of put her in that category of protected class, I guess. But just because she's delivering the shallow platitudes doesn't make the ideas any less terrible. Just putting lipstick on a pig. And as a liner note to that story, AOC's emotional rhetoric continued into her Instagram live. I don't know if anybody caught that, but basically, Republicans are bad. Democrats are good. Republicans don't care about anybody. Democrats are the caring ones. All emotion, no policy, no reason, no logic, just dumb, thoughtless, transparent remarks that shows she is just a liberal shill pretending to have moral values when really she is an empty vessel like all of the rest of the Democrat Party. Like a child reasoning their way through why they deserve a toy. It's got me thinking about how people of liberal mindset that are mostly moving through the world with emotionally driven cognitive bias are so easily swayed by other people that share their emotionally driven cognitive bias. If you're in an emotional frenzy and all whipped up in rage about something, you can easily find allies. You can pull other liberals in. And you just go out on the street and act like you're outraged about a thing. And you'll have instant friends. Instant liberal friends. Rage, it's a great tool for the shallow in the vapid. Great tool, You can build a whole social circle that way. There's some guys out there, what's the term they're using out there? Woke fishing. Guys going out there pretending to be outraged about the same thing these woke girls are outraged about, and then they can take them home and et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't take any intelligence to persuade liberals of anything. Just act like you are emotionally outraged, and you can get them to go along with anything you say. Here's an example of what I mean. Look at the way liberals react on Twitter to their utterly trite hashtags. Hashtag never again. They wrote a whole book about never again. Do you guys even remember what the hashtag never again was about? It's about gun violence in schools. Never again was we're never going to have another school shooting again. Did David Hogg's book stop shootings? Did it stop violence? I mean, if we were to follow the liberal playbook from 2018 when his book came out to 2020, you could make an argument that things have only escalated. Things have only gotten more extreme in the last 2 years. And where's that violence coming from anyways? Oh yeah, that's right. All that violence is being generated by the left. Other ridiculous, vapid hashtags, hashtag move on, hashtag me too, hashtag BLM. They all sound good because they have that emotional appeal, all emotion, no reason. That's what they all have in common. Every single one of these hashtags, it ends up running into a similar life cycle because they are based on overblown, inflated caricatures of issues. They start off really gaining a lot of traction, but by the end, what do we see that happens? I can't help but think about David Hogg's 3-step process for what we need to do, right? And how that applies to all of these hashtags. What did he say? Remember your rage. Remember what you're angry about, right? What is the next thing we need to do? Take action. Do something. make wild accusations about the NRA on social media, bang on courthouse doors, bring noisemakers to politicians' houses and keep them up all night, protest, loot, riot, set stuff on fire, destroy people's businesses and property. Just whatever, just do something. And then finally, what's the last step? This is the step that they leave out. Okay, so, in his step, it's 3 steps. It's remember, act, and then repeat. So remember, act, and then repeat that process. Okay, so remember the rage, do a bunch of violent things or whatever it takes because you're the only one whose feelings are important and everyone else doesn't matter. Even the business owner down the street, just destroy their business. It doesn't matter. Your feelings are most important. You're righteous in your cause. They need to be destroyed because you're righteous in your cause. But what's the last step? Really? The last step that they seem to leave out, particularly when it comes to hashtags, is the backlash step. The step where they jump the shark. The step where they overplay their hand. And how does the backlash to the hashtag play out? Where do we see it? Right? Trite hashtags that are reckless, that create caricatures of issues, always lead to an underground backlash. I'll give you an example. Hashtag Me Too. What happened to that? It faded away, right? We don't hear that much about it now. When it came out, it was all the rage. Noise about Me Too everywhere you looked. In fact, there was a lot of people's lives that were ruined, a lot of men's lives that were ruined. We've heard a little bit about the backlash to it. But you know where the backlash has really been happening to the Me Too movement? It's been happening silently. The backlash is something you don't even see. And I think that is something that we're going to see going into the 2020 election. Polls are all over the place. You can't even tell. I think that's because the backlash to what we're seeing with all the latest nonsense, all the mobilized rage that has turned into some course of action, is motivating people to get ready for a backlash. But it's a quiet backlash. You're not going to see it. You're not going to hear it covered by the mainstream news because they don't even know it's happening. Which leads me to my last story. Emmys so woke. How is it that liberals keep getting every issue exactly wrong? How can they still not see it? There's several reasons for this, but I want to focus in right now on the entertainment industry because we just had the Emmys this last weekend, and the entertainment industry can inform us of what's going on. These are the people that have the luxury and the wealth to shelter themselves and live in the most closed bubble of anybody else in our culture. So they are very interesting people to study when it comes to how far liberals have gotten off base and how they continue to express woke values when it continues to not work on average people. Jimmy Kimmel hosted the Emmys this year. Of course, it was just one woke cringe moment after another, one right after the other. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Jimmy Kimmel's moments. There's been a lot of other pundits that have dug in on what he was saying. There is one moment that stood out to me, though, from the Emmys that I do want to talk about. I think it's the moment that illustrates my point the best. It's when Mark Ruffalo was accepting his Emmy. I want to read a quote from Mark Ruffalo because I think this highlights where the confusion is coming from. You know, where are people truly compassionate? Where are people truly loving in our culture right now? And where are we getting people that are truly intolerant and truly hateful and truly disdaining others and stoking all sorts of division, right? Let's get into it. Let's read what Mark Ruffalo said in his acceptance speech. We have to come together with love for each other. Okay. I think we're all on board with that. Everyone could agree we need to come together with love for each other. Down. And if you have privilege, you have to fight for those who are less fortunate and more vulnerable. Well, in this line here, there's the word privilege. So ding, ding, ding. He's showing his woke bona fides by using the word privilege. Hey, everybody, don't come after me. I'm a liberal. I use the word privilege. We're all good. But other than that, yeah, I think that we agree. Less fortunate, more vulnerable. Let's care about those people. Yeah, let's actually do it in action, you know? And I think about people that I know personally. They will not necessarily put it on their social media. They'll take money out of their own budget, yearly budget. They'll go to other parts of the world where people are less fortunate and more vulnerable, and they will minister to those people there. They will do things like build a business, like build a chicken coop. In 2 weeks, they can leave a lasting difference that makes a real difference in some less fortunate person's life. Oh, but they have conservative politics. Oh no. They're showing love and compassion, but they don't fit in Mark Ruffalo's idea of liberals being the only loving ones. Because Republicans are all bad and liberals are all loving and really care about the less fortunate. Never mind, we won't talk about that group. Moving on. We are stronger together when we love each other and we respect each other's diversity. Totally agree. Oh, word diversity, ding, ding, ding. He gets a woke point for using the word diversity in this sentence. Other than that, though, it's something that everyone can agree with. Well, no, you know what? I agree with the diversity part, too. As a conservative, I believe we are stronger when we love each other and respect each other. And we actually are behind all types of diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diversity of background, diversity of family, diversity of socioeconomic status. Yeah, I'm for all of it. We're stronger together when we love each other and respect each other. Yes, love and respect. Yeah, I am with this. So who is it that's not loving and not respecting of others in our society, in our culture right now? Who is it that is actually most threatened by real diversity, like diversity of thought? Oh yeah, that's right. It's the Democrats, the liberals. Anyways, we won't talk about that either. Let's move on. Are we going to be a country of division and hatred and a country for only a certain kind of people? I agree. Are we only going to be a country? Are we going to be a country of division and hatred that's only for one type of people? I mean, I think it's pretty much caught on to the general populace now across America. Who is creating the division in our country? And the hatred. And a country that's only for a certain type of people. Because we see it. The media, the entertainment, they're all capitulating to this vocal minority of angry protesters. Is the country only going to be for the vocal minority of angry protesters and the people that agree with them? Because they're the ones stoking the division. They're the ones stoking the hate. And then he goes on to say, or are we going to be one of love and strength? I think we should be one of love and strength. Next line, and fight for all of us to pursue the American dream. Whoa, hold on a second, Mark Ruffalo. Hold on. Fight for all of us to have and pursue the American dream? Now you're starting to sound like a conservative. Be careful, Mark. Be careful. Next line. Life and liberty and love and happiness in this great country of ours. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. He just said life and liberty and love and happiness in the great country of ours. Mark, I'm sorry. You're now saying something a conservative would say. No liberal would say life, liberty, love, and happiness in this great country of ours. I'm sorry, bro. I think you might be confused about which side you're aligning with politically at this point. Then he goes on to say, that's what we are facing now. So get out and vote for love and compassion and kindness. I fully agree. We should vote for love, compassion, and kindness. And all those values now live on the right, not on the left. The liberal Democrats are fully in endorsement of canceling people, destroying their lives, doing violent things to them in the street. They'll even overlook murder if it's in line with their political views. Who is it that has real measured love, compassion, and kindness? That lives on the right now. I agree with you, Mark. We should vote for love, compassion, and kindness. That's why I'm voting Republican all the way down the ticket in this coming election. And I think you should too, Mark Ruffalo. Not paying attention. I'm moving on now. That's the end of his quote. That's the end of the Mark Ruffalo segment. Not paying attention to what has been happening in the real world in the last year plus. Mark Ruffalo has been living in an echo chamber of liberal think. And so do most of the Hollywood liberals. He's trying to think about, what is it that's going on there? Why is it that his quote, while it was aimed at liberals, just came off so all over the place and not really expressing an understanding of the liberal values that he espouses? I mean, he's literally not completely in the party right now with what he said in his statement. I think it's because there's no common sense. It's all emotion. There's no reason and logic. Just literally liberals. The larger liberal mindset is just completely wrong on every single subject. So I was thinking about, where did this come from? Why are we here? Particularly with looking at the entertainment industry, and maybe the larger media complex. I was thinking maybe this is just like the residual effects of the old media complex. Like Mark Ruffalo might just be invested in the way that things used to be before the internet. And he doesn't realize how much he's affected by that. And maybe all of Hollywood is kind of caught up in this old way of the media controlling what we see. Just realizing that I had Chuck Schumer's graphic going that whole time while I was talking. Okay, so moving on. There was a time in American history where all we had was newspapers. This was the only way that we got the news and the only way that people could read about what's going on in the world. So if something made it to a newspaper, then people just assumed that it was true. And then later, we had the television, which took over print. And still, you could control the messaging that people received. It was fairly easy to hide things you wanted to hide and highlight things you wanted to highlight, even through the television medium, even when we had cable television. But now, with the internet, with everyone having a camera on their phone, it's just much trickier to hide the fact that liberal ideas are terrible and they're literally taking the opposite of the correct position on every major issue. In so much of Hollywood, which has been steeped in this media complex and kept all of our Hollywood elites in their bubble, has created a world for them where they can stay cloistered or stay protected in the way that the old media complex portrayed things. I believe this is why it's been so difficult for liberals in our culture with Trump derangement syndrome. In the past, the mainstream media, like newspapers and television, could hide spoiled, petulant, and ridiculously overdramatic reactions because there were only a few channels to get all of your news from. Now, every reaction by everyone is laid bare on our new social media channels. So now we see liberal ideas for what they are, warts and all. And that's why so many of us that aren't in the direct bubble of the entertainment media world are beginning to see through it. We're beginning to have these kind of cringe reactions to acceptance speeches like the one that Mark Ruffalo gave. Really tin-eared. out of touch, platitudes, shallow, empty concepts and ideas that used to work when you could control what people saw through your media machine. But now as things open up more and more through the internet, basically anyone with a phone can capture the actual event, put it online, and hundreds of thousands of people can see it immediately. So it's much more difficult to protect the liberal narrative. And because liberal ideas are just worse ideas than conservative ideas, they just keep getting made to look the fool every time there is another protest or a riot. So every time we see these people turning turning their rage into action, it gets exposed now through social media in a way that old media complex, it could have controlled that stuff out, so you never saw that stuff. And that brings me to this kind of last point as I'm thinking about this. Really, the only way to stop all these deranged people in our culture that are basically blindly influenced by all of our entertainers that are operating in a bubble. The only way to stop these people from turning their rage into some sort of outrageous action is to start arresting them and applying federal charges. I think that's where we're at now. And I think it's coming soon. I actually think we're like right around the corner from this, where we're going to say, okay, enough of the nonsense. But it really is, until those people feel real consequences, these liberal idiot protesters / rioters / looters / crime creators, murderers, they will continue. And the politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Chuck Schumer, people like them, will keep stoking the extreme action with their rhetoric from these silly things like this presser about RBG. That is where we're at right now in 2020. So, yeah, I will agree with Mark Ruffalo. I think we need to vote for love, compassion, and kindness. And I'm going to be encouraging all of my viewers, I'm going to be encouraging everybody I know, that to vote for love, compassion, and kindness in 2020 is to vote Republican. All right, this has been another episode of Americana X Newswatch. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode.